Hello, gentlemen. Hello, ladies. Welcome to another fabulous Thursday. This is Joshua Hathaway. I'm here with my collaborator and dear friend Robert Schwenkler, and it's story time. And this story is about a conversation that I had with a man who I was having this conversation in the context of him having violated someone's consent, a woman's consent. I was asked to support a process of reconciliation. And something he said to me in our first conversation, which I will never forget, he said, Joshua, there's no part of me that's a predator. And I was just like, and that, brother, is what makes you dangerous. That is your problem. Because this guy was actually a genuinely nice guy. And he had completely suppressed his anger and very much suppressed a lot of his sexual energy in a relationship that wasn't very satisfying sexually. And so it came out as a violation of consent, an unconscious action. There's no part of me that's a predator, he says the apex predator on this fucking planet right now. So when we suppress our predator, we become impotent and we become dangerous.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack that a little bit more. I want to tell a story, different setting, different context, but this is one that a lot of guys will resonate with, I imagine. It's about business, it's about money, it's about sense of purpose, it's about finances. And I had a coaching call with a man about a month ago, came onto the phone. This is a man who in 2019 was killing it in certain months. He was doing, I believe, like he had some $20,000 months in his business. He was doing pretty well. And he did really well for a minute and then he crashed. Things just tanked in his business. And here I was speaking to him about 6 or 9 months after that, that little bubble had kind of opened up and then burst in his business. And we got on the phone and he's talking about how just he's being really hard on himself. For number one, he's just whipping himself, lashing himself across the back mentally and emotionally inside of his head. How big of a piece of shit he is for not performing and creating in his business the way that he should be, right? And he's really unclear about what direction to go, what direction to take. He's up in his head constantly. And we get on the call and we're diving into this, and we just kind of dropped layer by layer, deeper and deeper, and came to this place where there's just an incredible amount of numbness that he was carrying around. And this was a numbness to his anger, to his rage. We ultimately tracked that back to some early childhood stuff around a sense of domination from his mother. And the sources can look different for different guys, but that's what it was for this guy. But ultimately a feeling of domination and of being dominated and of helplessness and powerlessness. And here he is in his 30s, a guy who's seemingly capable is just floundering and feeling impotent because he's still carrying this impotence that got embedded into him really early on. And so, these stories that Joshua and I are telling are about parallel parts of life, but there are some really deep, there's a very singular core commonality between these two, which is the lack of access that so many men have to their anger, to their raw primal energy, the terror in many cases that men have to even admit that they're angry, let alone to let it out, to express it, to share that anger with another man, let alone another woman, another human being, to share with the world, anywhere from the range of, well, why don't you share about this, Joshua? You were speaking. Yeah.
Well, anger has a significant range, right? The anger starts with like mild irritation, oh God, right? And goes to frustration, and goes to anger, and then goes to rage, and then goes to blind rage, where literally people forget what they did in that state. They're so angry, berserking, right? Complete loss of control. And what I want to say is that anger is safe. There's nothing unsafe about anger. What you do with anger is what makes you safe or unsafe. What you do with that emotion, your willingness to access it and feel it, because our anger is connected to our desire. It's about what we want. Oh, I want it. And it's okay to want something. It's okay to really fucking want something. And it's connected to our power. And what I say about anger is that anger lives at the crossroads of passion and powerlessness. If I feel passionate about something and I really want it, but I don't feel a sense of power to get it, oh, the anger comes.
Yeah. I want to add on an alternate kind of framework that has really resonated for me and may for other people, which is that anger arises when a boundary has been crossed. For me, it's really simple. That's yeah. There's some nuance here, but this is, and I think this ties into your conversation around powerlessness. If a boundary has been crossed for me in the past, and I've learned that it's not okay for me to have agency, I'm gonna embed that sense of powerlessness into my nervous system.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, because you can get angry when no boundary's been crossed for you. But if you're carrying the layover and leftovers of a boundary crossing that never got cleaned up,
Yeah.
then that anger can come out. But still, it's where we care about something and we don't feel a sense of agency about it, the anger comes in. Because if I care and I feel agency, no anger. If I feel agency, if I don't feel agency but I don't care, no anger.
Yep.
It's that place where I'm passionate about something and I don't have a sense of agency about it. And that anger taps us in. It's root chakra. It's primal. And I think a lot of men might be surprised to hear this, especially the kind of men who have been in the business of suppressing their anger for a long time and suppressing their desire for a long time. Anger is sexy as fuck. An authentic, raw expression of anger that's not doing violence to anybody or not aimed at somebody in some particular way is really sexy. I've watched it again and again. We just did a process in our Tantra weekend with couples where we had the guys come into the middle and just get in their raw animal being and charge up and push against each other and growl and scream and oh. And then I had the guys then turn that energy toward their partner.
Tell the part about the guys who started to giggle that you were telling me, because this happens a lot when I work with men, and they start to access anger and they'll start to giggle it off.
Yeah. So and we're pushing against each other, and some of the guys start to giggle. I'm like, if you're fucking giggling, then you're not here right now, right? There's some part of us that doesn't feel comfortable and doesn't feel comfortable just dropping into that anger. And every single man in that room got there. I got him into his body, into that primal essence, that anger, that need to push against something, to feel your power. And I had the men lock up against each other and push against each other, not to dominate each other, to hurt each other, but to have something to push against. It's so important to evoke that anger. And then we turned that energy toward our partners and we penetrated our women. We walked toward them unapologetically powerful. And I can tell you there were just puddles on the floor underneath every single one of those women. They were so fucking wet. They were so turned on by these men who were bringing that primal energy to them. And so if you're a woman who's watching this video, please attest in whatever way is true for you. Maybe it's scary for you. And there are some women who are in that space who did feel a little bit uncomfortable. They did feel fear in their bodies as the men were accessing this anger. But I'd love to hear from you women about your experience around turn on and seeing a man who's really authentically embodying his anger in a way that's not violent or harmful.
And I want to take that a layer deeper. You're saying that a man who how were you saying it exactly again? A man who's embodying his anger is sexy? I want to get your exact words.
Authentically embodying his anger is sexy as fuck without doing harm.
I want to take that a layer deeper even and kind of expand it a little bit. A man who's able to embody his anger authentically is a man whose systems are online. This is a man who's able to bring his truth. This is a man who's able to bring his full expression, whether that's anger, whether that's grief, whether that's passion, whether that's fire, whether that's sexual energy, whether that's confidence. Like a man who can do anger in an authentic, kind of not needing to offload it onto somebody else to damage them or hurt them, but to really just contain it and embody it himself, has access to all these other things almost across the board. I don't think I've seen any exceptions to that. So a guy who is able to do this, that's a guy who's sexy. That's the distinction that I want to make. I have
Absolutely.
not. And go ahead.
Yeah, and when you're able to do this, a lot of this really comes down to embodying and expressing desire without demand. When we can own our desires and express them, when we can, this is my desire, this is what I want, and be able to express that to our partner, to our lover, to our romantic partner, to a stranger, right? Or somebody new that we're talking to, a potential partner. When we can do that without demanding anything of them, expecting anything of them, and without looking for permission to want what I want, right? Then we're walking this beautiful path of embodying our own desire, expressing our desire, and owning that desire as ours, and inviting somebody in to an experience of sharing with us without any expectations. And there are a lot of guys who live in the looking for permission, waiting for an opening, looking for the woman to give you permission to express desire. And what you've just done is you've put her in the lead. You have put the responsibility on her by making her be the gatekeeper of some kind of permission for your desire. And that is a recipe for like a just profoundly unsatisfying relationship and sex life, and probably like zero results when it comes to approaching women, because a woman does not want to be leading that interaction. She wants her consent to be radically respected, but she wants to be to bring your leadership means to bring your desire just honestly and truthfully, and without any kind of hiding or hemming or hawing. Now the other side of the way to fall off the razor's edge of walking that beautiful line of desire without demand is to be that person who's like just self-absorbed and doesn't even get that there's another person with their own experience out there, and is just like taking what you want and not attuning in any way or staying connected to the other person and what they might be needing in the interaction. And so we want to walk this line of like radical permission for our feelings and energy, radical expression of what it is that we want in an attuned way, and not fall off the edge of looking for permission or just being like a sociopathic narcissist.
And here's the thing is, and we've spoken about this in other videos in regards to nice guys and their patterns, is that the guy who's constantly tiptoeing and looking for permission is actually incredibly self-absorbed as well, and narcissistic in his own way.
Yeah.
His world is all about, how can I make myself stay comfortable by making sure that everybody else out here is comfortable. It's very covert manipulation. So they're both pretty narcissistic modes of operation.
Yeah. And how can I keep myself comfortable by making sure that you're already mostly a yes to what I'm going to ask you for, so I don't have to hear no, right? Yeah. That's another huge level of just seeking comfort and fear of rejection, right?
Yeah.
Needing to be validated. Your desires don't need to be validated by anybody else. Your desires are fucking yours. And to get met, they're likely to include somebody else, but you're going to want that person to be a yes to your desires, right? You're going to want that to be an honest, authentic, consensual yes when that comes. But that's not going to come if you're like already waiting and doing the calculus to see if you're going to get a yes before you ever ask. It's a risk. It's an investment. It's an act of leadership. It's a vulnerable move. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it compelling to a woman. Yeah. She's like, whoa, he's fucking bringing it. He's owning it. He's embodying it. He's not waiting for permission. He's not asking me to lead this interaction. He's just showing up and being himself.
And this goes full circle exactly back to the essence of what we're speaking about, which is that a guy who's got full access to his anger, who's able to fully embody that along with all the other spectrum of his experience that comes along with that, his confidence, his passion, like this is where it all kind of ties in, is that a guy who is able to bring it all emotionally, and when it comes to anger is also able to show up confident and and relaxed in his desire.
Exactly. And look, at the end of the day, you're a predator. Dude, you're a predator. A good man is not a nice man who's not a predator. A good man is a fucking dangerous man who's making conscious choices about how to use his power. And if you have to shut away your power in order to feel like you're a good man, then we should have a conversation because that's not good for anyone. You can either be a conscious predator or an unconscious predator. And I was talking to a guy who was an unconscious predator who had suppressed his desire so much that then he had to express it in unconscious ways, make unconscious decisions to cross boundaries in order to get some need met that he wasn't able to really own in himself, and take a conscious path in the light to get met. Right? And that's what's going to happen day in and day out. Some of you have experienced the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Some of you have experienced the ways that you suppress your anger, suppress it, and then explode somewhere, right? So we want to lower our attention thresholds and learn how to express the frustration. I don't like it when you do that. It's frustrating to me, right? Just express it and own it. Own your preferences. Create a conversation about it. It actually facilitates connection. You're afraid it's going to create disconnection, but in an authentic relationship, truly expressing what's frustrating for you creates connection. If you're owning it, if you're owning your experience and not putting it on the other person to be responsible for you.
Yeah. So for any guy who's listening and wants to dive deeper into these principles, we've got a webinar that we created. We've been working for like a year and a half on it. And you can find that at authenticdatingsecrets.com. And we actually get some really incredible women together to talk about not just this aspect, but kind of the gestalt of what it is that women find attractive in a man, especially in the context of dating and approach. And if you're a dude who wants to have some more agency in his life when it comes to creating really delicious connections with women, you can head over there, check it out.
And I'll leave you with this, which is a practice that I use sometimes if I need to access my anger. It's just push-ups. And I was just doing push-ups on the beach this morning. I went for a run with two of my favorite female people in the world. And I was down there doing my last set of push-ups, and I was just grunting out those last push-ups, like pushing myself to the very edge of my capacity, right? And when I finished my push-ups, both of the women were just like, oh my God, I'm so turned on right now, right? Because seeing that is a turn on. And embodying that is a turn on, brother. So get down on the ground, put your hands on the ground and do some push-ups, and do it until you fail. And as you're coming to failure, draw up that fierce, angry energy and grunt and growl and scream and make the sound. Be uncivilized. Undomesticate yourself. We are decolonizing ourselves in a very significant way when we access our anger and we become the animal body that we have and are. And we learn to navigate that with a lot more openness and grace. And so try that practice and let us know in the comments if you find that valuable.
Thanks for being with us today. Talk to you soon.
All right, team. Ciao.